Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Solve a Problem Like on the Attacking Football podcast. Joining me this week, after our Champions League exploits last week, which was wild, Scott returns. How you doing, mate?
Doing good, yeah. It was a rough night last night, but you know.
Yeah, it was. Back from his 2-week hiatus, Dylan, May, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I don't like football anymore, so
yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, there's a few non-football fans on this podcast this week. As ever, joining us in the studio is our producer Alfie, who's also been on holiday for 2 weeks. Welcome back, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to ripping into Chelsea for an hour, to be honest.
I think we all are, to be perfectly honest. And speaking of which, our Chelsea superfan this week, Connor Holden, mate. It's been a long time coming, this episode. Thank you very much for joining us. How you doing?
No worries, I'm good. Yeah, we've been speaking since I think it's May, June, trying to get this to happen, and we've finally got there. So yeah, I'm ready to try and defend my club.
I think I cancelled once, you cancelled once, then we both cancelled at the same time, and then we were all on holiday. And look, we've got it in the diary. We're here. We're ready to go. Are you ready to take the keys to Stamford Bridge?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good man. For those new to the series, first of all, don't forget to subscribe. What we're going to do, we're going to give Connor the keys to Stamford Bridge. He's going to go through the squad. He's going to choose who he's going to keep, who he's going to send on loan, who he wants to sell. We're going to go through a little bit on transfers, although why bother at this point? And then Scott's going to take over. We're going to go through the boardroom. We're going to go through management, and we'll do some fan questions at the end. So nice and easy. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get into the goalkeepers, mate, if that's all right.
Yeah,
because we've chosen to do this from Transfer Market because Transfer Market have only got a squad of 31. If we'd gone with the Chelsea official page, I think there's 9 goalkeepers, but we're down to 4, right? So we're going to start with Bobby Sanchez. Keep, sell, loan.
Right. So this is a weird one because if it's this season, I'd say keep because I was more or less happy to go into this season. Jorgensen being an addition, which I'm sure we'll touch on, but I was happy enough to not address the goalkeeper this season. I thought there are other areas I'd rather address, as much as I'm not saying Robert Sanchez is anything special, but I would be happy with him this season. So for the sake of it now, I'll say keep, but keep it in the back mind that I'm not saying he's brilliant.
I think he's a decent quality goalkeeper. He's a Premier League level number 1.
He's Premier League level. Not sure.
Maybe not where Chelsea want to be.
Yeah, he has a mistake in him, doesn't he? Especially with his feet.
Yeah, he's definitely got a mistake in him, but he's also got confidence, which is something Maresca likes in his keeper. So it's sort of catch-22. But yeah, he definitely obviously has that sort of mind blip in him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Philip Jorgensen.
Again, keep. He's the second keeper, and I quite like it. I think he brings the on-ball qualities that you're looking for in a Maresca team. Yeah. Not 100% sold on his sort of shot-stopping tendencies. I think he's got a bit of a tendency to parry shots out into open spaces for rebounds. I think we're going to see that a lot this season when he does play. But again, for the fee and the fact that I was willing to not go all in for a keeper this year, spending 50-60 million pounds on a out-and-out number 1, I think for the fee that you got him at, I think it's an okay gamble to take. So again, quite boring, but keep.
Is he going to want to be a number 2? Because he's come in for a half-decent fee. He's 22 years old. Is he going to want to start?
Yeah, of course he's going to want to start. I think, look, if it comes down to 80 games this season, which is obviously if we do well in all competitions, not saying we will, but if, he's going to get Conference League games, he's going to get Domestic Cup games, so he's going to get a chance. My prediction would be that he is the number 1 by the end of the season, and Sanchez is either the number 2 or is sold next season. That would be my prediction, which is why I said keep for Sanchez now. But next season, I think it becomes that Jorgensen's number 1 and Sanchez is sold, if possible, would be my prediction. Yeah.
Do you you mentioned that he's very good with his feet and not so good shot stopping. I know it's a Maresca team to be good with the ball at your feet. What is your preparation? Are you okay for your goalkeeper not to be as good at shot stopping if he's elite with his feet, or would you rather it be the other way around? Because at United we probably have a similar situation now with Onana, who's very, very good with his feet, but possibly not the best at shot stopping. What's your kind of view on that?
Yeah, I think you've got to sort of make the decision within your squad, haven't you? So like if you look at City and Arsenal, I think they've sort of made the decision with Edison and Raya, not to say that they're poor shot stoppers, but I think that because they're elite with their feet, you take a little bit off of what the shot stopping quality of, say, an Alisson. Don't get me wrong, Raya this season actually really impressed me. I think his shot stopping's been second to none for the first few games this season. He's made some huge saves. But I think, yeah, you do have to sort of make the adjustment of, if we want a little bit more on the ball, we might have to take a little bit more of a hit off the ball. And if you can get both, then obviously you're laughing. But I think with Jorgensen, like I said, you got a slightly better on ball principles for what he gives you in a Maresca team. Off ball, if it costs you a few goals come the end of the season, that's when you have to assess, was it worth it?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I'm not sure which one of these is your fourth goalkeeper, but we've got Bettinelli.
Yeah, third.
And we've got Bergstrom.
Yeah, so, and this, I'll touch on this, this is an issue with the whole sort of Sky Sports thing for me, is obviously they put, like you said, 9 goalkeepers, but there's nothing really to do with Bergstrom. He's an academy keeper. He'll go back and he'll play in the academy. So for me, he's none of the three. If you talk in sell, loan, or keep, those three. For me, he's just back in the academy. Bettinelli is keep because he's the third choice. Again, a bit like a Scott Carson, I guess, for City. He doesn't need the playing time. He's there purely, they love him. He's brilliant for the dressing room, and he's not a hassle. Even if he doesn't play a single game in the season, he's not going to throw up a fuss, and he's not the worst choice to have as a third choice. So again, he's a keep purely on the fact that he's not needed to be anything more than what he is.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. Yeah.
So no sales so far.
Almost like Chelsea in real life. Okay, let's move on to your centre back. So we're going to start with probably my favourite centre back at your club, Levi Colwill.
Yeah, I mean that's an obvious keep for me. Pretty much the same as you. Like, I just think he's class. I think last season he struggled a little bit from having the game sort of so fast under Pochettino, and obviously had a few games at left back and just sort of being misprofiled completely. I think this season already under Maresca, you're seeing him on the ball more. You're seeing him with a lot more sort of responsibility to play through the lines, which is his best asset. Yeah. And again, I think in there with a centre-back partner, which we'll speak about in a minute, I think is a perfect combination for him to have. So I think with the right partner, I think he's like a set in stone next decade sort of player if you can keep him at the club that long, because he's that good in my opinion.
What do you think his ceiling is as a player?
He's 21.
Yeah.
Like, do you think he is elite, or do you think he will just finish just a level below that, or is it too early to call that?
I think on ball qualities, I think you're talking one of the very best, but I think I think he's brilliant defensively, but I think if you're talking like elite defenders, I don't think he's quite got the capacity to be the absolute elite, like a Van Dijk, for example, defensively. But I think he's an all-round mold. I think he'll be his ceiling is to be one of the very best in the Prem. I put it like that.
Okay. Axel Disasi.
Sell for me. I was never really keen on the purchase in the first place. I just think this is where you start to get to the territory of it just wasn't really a purposeful buy. You already had Chalobah, who again has been shipped out for different reasons, even though in my opinion he's a better defender and he offers more versatility at the back. He does add a little bit of experience, and he does have that sort of little bit of personality about him, which of like a Rudiger that you miss in terms of jeering up the crowd and being a bit like that. But overall, I don't think that's enough to sort of offset the poor defensive lapses, the over aggression at times, and the just, like I say, poor decisions on the ball a lot of the time, and those little blips which can cause mistakes at the back. So yeah, he's a sell for me.
Wesley Fofana.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the partner for Levi Colwill for the future. I think he's okay. I think he's unbelievable. I think obviously the big if with him is keeping him fit, and this is a big if with a few players in our squad. So of course take that with a pinch of salt, because if he continues to get injured, you can't even have this conversation anyway. But take the injuries away from him, and I think he's the perfect partner to Colwill. I think in Colwill you've got a bit more of a sound mind on the ball, a little bit less tenacious. With Fofana, you've got the aggressive, the tenacity, the dual monster type next to him. I think them two as a partnership you're talking Gabriel Saliba in terms of like how they complement each other on the ball and off the ball. But as I say, the main thing for him is, can you keep him fit? Something you've not seen, especially for an £80 million price tag over the last few years. So it's a keep for sure, but you've got to keep an eye on those injuries. Got to.
Alfie, can you have a quick look at how much time Fofana spent in the treatment room?
I actually have it here. He has in 21-22 he missed 63 games. In 22-23
Wow.
he missed 26 games, and then 23-24 he missed 51 games.
They were
So
all
he's
they
more
were
than
all the same
tripled.
injury, were they?
Yeah,
It's not even-
broken fibula in 21-22, knee injury in 22-23, and then cruciate ligament tear in 23-24.
Oh, all different injuries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
He's
been
been
an issue.
unlucky. I agree, though. I think if you remember Fofana at Leicester, he was probably one of the
Yeah.
most highly rated defenders in the league.
100%. Yeah.
But he was just so unfortunate with a lot of injuries that are coming into the Premier League now, like the initial
Mm.
injuries, Yoro Marino. It seems like as soon as players sign players, they're just
Yeah.
getting injured. And Fofana was unfortunately unlucky with that when he came into Chelsea.
Like in that time frame, he's only had 4 injuries, but they've just been very long
Big
injuries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been unfortunate.
I think the cruciate knee ligament is probably the most worrying of them. Because
Yeah,
that's something, that's a reoccurring injury, isn't it?
They'd worry me less than muscle injuries, though, if
Yeah.
I'm being perfectly honest. Like, them type of injuries worry me less than consistent muscle injuries, because they are just, not that they're avoidable, but some of them are contact injuries. Whereas muscle injuries, you don't need contact, and they worry me definitely a lot more than them type of injuries.
His
Yeah.
market value now on that transfer market is 25 million. And so I think
Yeah.
they paid 80 million for him, what, mate, 2 years ago or 3? Was it 2 or 3?
Yeah,
True.
it's true, I think.
Yeah, it was the first transfer window under the new ownership.
Yeah.
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 It's
Okay.
tough because he's got all the quality, but it's just like you say with that value. It's for me that value is depreciated so much because you're talking injuries, which if you can't get rid of them, there's no point having the second conversation anyway. As much as I love him as a player, but it's a similar thing with Reece James. If you can't keep him fit, what's the point?
Yeah.
We're going to come on to Reece James because that is a hot topic in attacking football. I tell you who Fofana reminds me of, and I'm going to show you my age now if the greys in the beard don't already. Ledley King.
Oof.
Prolifically talented defender, and he had one leg, and famously he just never trained. He never ever trained. He'd rock up on a Saturday and he'd play, and then he'd go home and stick ice on his legs.
He was unbelievable.
He was
Unbelievable defender. If he'd stayed fit, he'd be in the Terry, Rio, Vidic conversation.
He was brilliant.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, let's move on. Badiashile.
He's a tough one for me because I would say keep purely on the preface of he's the secondary left centre back behind Colwill, and we don't really have another left-footed centre back behind that I trust yet to be the left centre back, not the left back. So on that alone, he's a keep. But if you he's a sort of one where he's on thin ice for me because he had a really good start when he first joined that first 6 months. But he's just been he's sort of really tailed off. His physicality's looked a little bit off in times. His decisions on the ball just look very ropey. His confidence looks shot.
Yeah.
And he's just like I think he's on a thin bit of rope in terms of if he can't prove that he's at least good enough to be that backup to Colwill consistently, then again you look coming into the territory of could he be sold, because he's not putting up any trees at the minute. Him and Disasi have been extremely poor for the best part of 6 months.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment to make, actually. Again, but to be fair, he's one that seems to stay fit.
Yeah, I think he had a couple of
poor season last season.
Yeah, I think he come back from injury last season, and then he literally was very poor for like a month. He was unbelievably poor. Genuinely looked like he had a mistake in him every time he touched the ball, let alone every game. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy enough if he can get back to a certain level for him to be that Colwill backup, because he does bring in the assets that you want of a defender to back up that left centre back role. And of course, you've spent a decent enough fee, around 30 million. It's not too bad to have him as that sort of depth piece. But again, if he continues on the same trajectory that he's on at the minute, then it's only going to go downwards, and it's just not safe if Colwill was to sustain a big injury.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Tosin Adarabioyo. Now, this is an interesting one because we were barred from signing him, I think. No, we weren't. He chose Chelsea. Yeah, no, I'm thinking of somebody else. Yeah, he chose Chelsea, but I think we were interested, weren't we?
Yeah. He was initially interested in going back to Manchester, but then Chelsea came in and he chose Chelsea.
That's right. He's a tough one because I mean he's a keep, but again, because he's on a free. So like, I think the actual like deal itself is fairly simple, really, to look at. He's on a free. He's right centre back coverage when you already knew you was going to sell Chalobah, which I don't agree with, but they've done it. And like I say, Disasi, in my opinion, isn't good enough. So toss in to be that, again, secondary piece to Fofana, who is, as we've said, is injury prone. You need somebody who you can rely on. I think he adds a little bit of experience. He's proven in the Prem. And the fact that he was coming in for no fee means that you pretty much have a free shot in the next year or two of selling him off for some sort of profit if he doesn't at least cover Fofana to a high level. Then, so it's really one of those ones. There's not too much to say, in my opinion. I think it's quite a self-explanatory deal on the terms.
Yeah, he's never gonna reach a world class level, but he could be a solid defender. He was good for Fulham for a long
very
time
good
for
too.
Fulham.
Like,
Really
good on
good.
the ball.
Mm.
I wouldn't say he has similar attributes to Fofana, but they're both very good on the ball, and he is an aggressive dueler. Very good in the air as well.
Very
Which
quick
is-
for his height as well.
Yeah, he is very quick, which is
Yeah,
good
he
if you're going to play a high line. So look, he has a lot of attributes that are good for a backup centre back. So I do agree with you. I think he's a good player to keep in the squad.
Okay, let's move on to the left backs, of which there are 3. So we'll start with your starting left back at the moment, Cucurella.
Yeah, he's a keep for me. I'm happy with Cucurella. He's the one that, I mean, he came into a lovely bit of form last season. Of course, had some very poor moments in a
I
Chelsea
was gonna say
shirt.
he really struggled in his first season, didn't
He
he?
did really
struggled.
struggle. He's one of those defenders, I think, that he just needs sort of, if the rest of the team's doing okay, he'll start to look even better. When things start to spiral into really bad moments, I think he's the sort of one that can almost, what's the word? He can make mistakes as well. Like they sort of start to spiral up on him as
Yeah.
things get worse. He's aggressive. He's in terms of dueling, he'll battle for everything. In the terms of his height and the amount he wins sort of aerial duels based on that, people have always gone over the fact that he's a liability at the back post. But in terms of when he's attacking things head on, he's actually really aggressive and how he wins like his duels like that. So I'm happy with him. Do I think you can improve, and do I think there's a weakness to be exploited with him? As I said, if he's struggling in a game, can he become a pressing trigger for opponents? I think yes.
Yeah.
Can you target him at the back post if things aren't going their way and you're defending the box more often? I think yes. But overall, I don't think he's sort of a big part of the team where you have to really be looking at him now and thinking, oh, we need to do something here. I think we're more than settled. And like I say, as the team gets better, I think he actually thrives more and more and gets into it, and it sort of grows him.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Sick Note himself, Ben Chilwell.
Yeah, he's a sell. I think that's pretty obvious considering he's been banished to the bomb squad.
Yep.
But I said it as soon as Maresca was hired as well. I said he was one of the people on my list as like a loser of the appointment. He was never going to fit. You're talking about a nominal fullback, better off as a wing back here. Doesn't suit Maresca. You're either having to be a left back who comes inside and creates sort of a back three as a left centre back, not his role. Can he invert into midfield and sort of do that role in terms of adding that stability in the middle of the park and that passing ability and sort of comfortability in the middle of the pitch? No, he can't. His only real asset would have been that overlapping left back role, which is something that we don't implement. So I think Maresca put it on paper himself when he said it in the interview. Unfortunately for Chilwell, he's having a tough moment fitting in at the minute. And I think that's a very fair assessment of him. I think the writing was on the wall the second the appointment was made, to be honest.
Yeah. Where do you think he goes? Because he's clearly not going anywhere till January now, which means he's going to have 6 months of no football.
Do you want him at
Probably
United?
longer than 6 months. Not particularly, no, because we've already got 2 left backs in the treatment room that we can't get out.
Yeah.
United are interested in Chilwell though. They have been interested in Chilwell. So look, if it comes to a situation in January where Luke Shaw is injured and Malacia is not back yet, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised to see a long deal approached.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
His best friend Mason Mount's there as
I was
well.
gonna say,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's what I thought during the summer. But look, unfortunately for Mount as well, he's on the treatment table a lot this season, which is horrible. But look, I wouldn't rule it out.
Did us over, didn't you? You absolutely had our pants down with that transfer.
He never had a consistent string of injuries at Chelsea apart from that pelvic injury though. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, in that last year, he had a few sort of niggles, I guess.
Nigglers,
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't know how much of that was sort of contract issues sort of being, let's say he's got a bit of a niggle
True.
because we're going to keep him out of the squad until he signs a new deal, sort of thing. And they were trying to get him to sign the deal on their terms, which were much lower than the terms that he wanted. So
Chelsea
you don't
wouldn't
know
do
what's to lose.
something that underhanded, surely.
No,
Surely
you
not.
never know. You never know.
Okay. Look, Chilwell is he's out of the club no matter what. Even if you change your manager, I don't think he's coming back into the squad for any reason, is he?
No, and not with the way the squad's being built. I think he's gone.
Renato Vega.
He's keep. I really like him. I think people are going to sort of learn a bit more about him as time goes on. He obviously looks from the outside, looking in, like a very strange one. Was interested in Calafiori, who went to Arsenal. Brilliant signing. He's unbelievable. But we was quite clearly in for a mold of that ilk. And Vega, if you watch him play, he is genuine. He is that type of player. I'm not trying to compare them at all in terms of quality, but in terms of a mold of footballer, that's what you're getting with Vega. You're getting a left back who can play as a DM. He can play as a left centre back. As I said, Chilwell can't do. He can do both. And he's actually played for the Portugal under-21s as a left centre back outright. He's played as a number 6 outright. As much as his left back is his nominal position. I just think he's perfect depth cover to have. 21, brilliant value, and just for 6'3".
I was going to say he's very tall.
He's physically imposing, but he's also just like nimble on the ball. Like his actual balance and agility on the ball. Some of the turns he's already made when he come off the bench in the Premier League this season. There's already clips going around of him, sort of with little like Maradona turns in the middle of the pit. It's lovely. He's really nimble for a 6'3" lad. Really nimble.
Okay. Let's go on to your right backs then. We've got another man who I don't remember the last time I saw him play. Reece James.
Pre-season.
Yeah. Pre-season, yeah. He played pretty much the whole pre-season. Fine. And then
is that hamstring he's out now again?
Yeah.
Hamstring, yeah.
So, yeah,
I thought he got surgery. Did he not get surgery on that?
He did have surgery, and then he came back
Still,
slowly. Played the whole pre-season, looked quite good in pre-season in terms of, again, it was being managed with his minutes with Gusto, but he looked okay. And then obviously he's had this last month where he was going to be suspended anyway.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have really mattered. But then so it's looking like he's going to be back after this international break. Look, let's see again with him. It's tough because, of course, for me to keep no matter what, because I refuse, as a Chelsea fan, I absolutely refuse to watch him go somewhere, become fit, and then become the best right back in the world. Like I'd rather him just not. Like I'm just at that point where I just know that that's the sort of thing that would happen if we was to actually sell him somewhere like Madrid. Let
me ask you a question, Connor. Right, because the attacking football law for Reece James goes back eons, right? And it started with a question. We did a podcast on who the world-class players are in the top 6 teams, right? Mm-hmm. And we asked the question, is Reece James world-class? And some people sat on the fence of he has world-class ability. Other people sat on the fence, sat on the side that you can't be world-class if you're not playing. Where do you sit?
It's pretty much the same on both, because what I will say is pretty much the same as you've just said. He is world-class when he's on the pitch, in my opinion. I think when he's on the pitch, and I think when he's playing, something we've not seen enough of, I think he is one of the best right-backs in the world, not just the Premier League, in the world for me. I think he's got everything. But as I said earlier with Fofana, and I continue to say, what's the point of having that second conversation if you can't have the first conversation of getting them minutes on the pitch? So I completely understand why people would go for the other side of things, because I get it. And I've suffered it first class watching it, because I see him on the pitch, get excited up for half an hour, and then his hamstring goes again. So I've lived it.
Does he fall into the category of potentially world-class? Because the ability's there, but I mean, I'm potentially world-class. Maybe the ability is there within me, but I can't get on the pitch either. But the entire time he sat in a hospital bed, he's not a world-class footballer.
Yeah, and that, as tough as it is to say, yes, that is true. But the thing is with him, it's not just that he has world-class ability. Because I think when people say, like, you've got world-class ability or you've got world-class potential, I don't even think it's a potential thing with him, because I think when he's on the pitch, I don't think it's potential. I think it's fact. I think he is just world-class. Okay. But it's just, for me, like, I agree, because he's not on the pitch enough So it's not that he doesn't have, it's not potential, but it is, if you see what I'm trying to say.
So
Yeah.
if we pressed you now to say world class or not world class,
I would
Yes.
say world class, but I don't
of
know
course
what.
you would.
Yeah,
Take the Chelsea t-shirt off, and I'll ask you again.
I still think I'd say world class because
Okay,
when I
fine.
see him on a pitch, I think,
Mm.
wow, what a footballer. But it has
Okay.
its tendency, it has its other flaws.
See,
I
I'm
think
not crazy.
Dylan and I fall in the other camp.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. Like I hear it absolutely. If you was
To be
asking who
fair-
am I more likely to build a team around, if you said, oh, what, Trent or Reece, then I would probably, as much as I love Reece more being a Chelsea fan, I'd have to say Trent because the availability matters.
Yeah.
But that's, if the question is just are they world class, I have to say I have to side with him.
Dylan, what were you going to say then?
And I was going to say, well, I call Luke Shaw world class, so and he's never on the pitch either. So it is a difficult one. Like
I think the difference is Luke Shaw has a much longer career behind him of showing that he's world class.
yeah, because he's older. But like
Yeah.
I'm more in love with the idea of Luke Shaw than what we actually get. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because we never get to see him, unfortunately, as much as I love him. I think I
Okay.
said I love him 5 times now, but look, it is what it is.
Final defense. Look, we're 30 minutes in now, and we're just
Wow.
getting to the final defender. Malo Gusto.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going on about each player.
No, you're fine. There's just so many of them.
Okay. Malo Gusto again. He's keep. I think he's I finally don't mind, and of course I do mind, but I don't mind when Reece gets injured now because I finally am happy with the understudy that's there. I think Gusto is absolutely unbelievable. I genuinely think he's so underrated to the point where I start to have the conversation in my head of when if Reece ever does become fully fit, it's really an issue what happens with Gusto because I don't want his minutes to dissipate because I think he is that good. So it becomes, can we get him in at left back, which in pre-season, I'm not sure how much of it you guys sort of followed, but in pre-season, we actually saw Gusto playing at left back with Reece at right back quite often. So I think it's even in the manager's thinking of, if I have both of these players fit, they're both massive parts of my plans to the point where we need them both on the pitch. So I think it's an outstanding keep. Like I honestly think Real Madrid would be looking at somebody like Gusto in the future.
Yeah, well, they are going to be needing a right back very, very soon. But I mean, you brought him in for 30 million euros, which looks a steal now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It looks an absolute bargain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he's in quite a lot of fantasy teams in the attacking football league as well.
Well, he looks like he's out injured again now, unfortunately.
Oh, again, really?
Yeah, so he looks like he's picked up. He went off yesterday. Sort of just went down with a muscle injury, and it looks like it might not be too good in terms of if he struggled to walk off. So we might be without Reece and Gusto for the next few weeks. So
Does that push Disasi to right back then?
Yeah.
Hope not, but it could look like that. Yesterday, Casado went to right back. Yesterday.
He did that for
Well,
Brighton. He was very good in that
He
position.
did, didn't he? Because I remember he played against us right back, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's definitely an option, but it's one of those ones where every time I got asked about it in pre-season, could we see it? I was sort of like, well, we could, but we've got Reece James and Malo Gusto, 2 amazing players there, so don't worry. But I mean, the second both of them are on the injury bed, of course it becomes a massive option.
Yeah.
So,
well, why don't we talk about Moses Caicedo then? Because we're about to move into your midfield.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there are less midfielders than there are defenders. So, Moses Caicedo.
Keep.
Yeah.
It's going to become very keep-minded, I think, with this section. But Caicedo, I think, don't get me wrong, massive overpayment in terms of pretty much what you're paying at any point in this point of view. But I also just do think he is exceptional. I think he's such a rare sort of mold of everything in midfield. I think he's got dueling abilities to be that 6, maybe not the out and out 6, but he's got that sort of dual capacity and defensive ability. He's also amazing on the ball. His sort of passing range is so underrated. His ability to carry the ball. He's not the finished product either. Last year completely went under the radar. Like the first few games of the season, everybody sort of jumped on him. And I think the second people jumped on him, they'd sort of just had that in their head. Like, oh, Caicedo's a poor signing. We'll keep that there. And then as the season went on, it was just better. And towards the end of the year, he's probably our best player. Like obviously Palmer, but behind that, so good. Like I really think the media jumped on that one at the wrong time.
See, I think last season with Caicedo, I don't know if you agree, but like the first part of the season, he was kind of like a 4 out of 10, but then second part of the season, he was like an 8 or 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
He definitely just grew into the role. Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly like that. I think that the media just kept the 4 out of 10 and just kept that like,
Yeah.
oh, we've made our mind up now. So that's that, and that sells better headlines because he's 150 million pounds. So let's not give him the quality, the recognition he deserves for the second half of the season. But I also do think he started this season quite slow. The first 3 games, I do think he's actually been fairly poor. Like, he was okay yesterday, but before that, not brilliant.
He's 22 in yet another new system under another new manager. He needs some consistency of system to be able to build his style of play. I think people forget that he's 22 and just go, oh, well, 115 million euros, 150 million euro. You should be expecting the finished product. I don't think you bought the finished product. I think you bought the potential that he has, and we talked a little bit just now about world-class potential or world-class ability. I think he very much falls in the world-class potential category.
Yeah, I agree. I like you say as well, the changes, I think the byproduct of him starting slowly is from there's been system changes. He was also the last back in pre-season out of the midfield group, so he's actually running on fumes in terms of getting back into his minutes in the legs and stuff. So yeah, I completely agree. I think he's going to only improve as the season goes on again, and I think it'll come to a point where a lot of people are praising him more and more.
Agreed. So you've got the 3 big money signings in midfield. I think they're all going to end up being a keeper. These 3 boys cost 300 million pounds. The next one is Romeo Lavia.
Yeah. And again, I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think he's the most natural 6 of the 3 that you're referring to. I think he was brilliant again in pre-season. He's also now out with a knock. Hopefully it's more load management from what they're saying. It's not too much to worry about. But again, first game of the season against City, not only was he Chelsea's best player, I honestly thought he was the best player on the pitch. Even in a 2-0 loss, I thought he was that good for the 60 minutes that he was on the pitch. If you can keep him fit, he's another one of those ones for me that out all last season, big money signing, wasn't available. So he's sort of reserving judgment in that sense, but he's got abundance of ability and on and off the ball.
Okay. Enzo Fernandez, captain.
Hot topic. For me,
we are gonna come on to that.
I love Enzo Fernandez as a footballer. I think he's so good. The only thing that has to be mentioned every time you talk about him, which you can decide yourselves when you build a squad if it's good or bad, is he's the sort of player you have to build the rest of the team to fit him in terms of what he's going to offer the team and what he isn't going to offer the team. He is the sort of player in midfield where if you're going to have him in there, you do have to then have an idea in mind of what else is going to be around him to cover up the deficiencies that he does have. Because whilst he is an amazing footballer, brilliant passer of the ball, one of the best passing ranges in the league, and just that ability to create. And I think he's also just one of the most switched on in terms of his passing IQ and just sort of his footballing IQ in general. What he, of course, does then lack is he's not the most mobile in the middle of the park. Yeah. You can get hurt in transition with him if you don't have the right partner or the right assets around him to cover that. And I think as well, something that he often hurt from last season with Poch is he was defending a lot more up and down, sort of box to box. I don't think his dueling is that bad when he's moving side to side in terms of protecting a back 4. But when you're moving him up and down the pitch, a player that's not mobile, it's like telling Jorginho to go box to box and defend. It's not quite going to work without the right configuration. So in short, I think he's brilliant. Again, overpaid, of course, but I think he's definitely a key figure of this team in the future, in my opinion. I think he's really good.
Well, I think we've just talked about 3 players that the 4 other people on this call would all take in their team today. I think Liverpool desperately need that profile of player. Man United desperately need that profile of player. Of those 3, I think you probably have the potential to have the best midfield in the world just with those 3 midfielders.
I'm glad you agree because that's how I feel too. So,
yeah, I mean, look, we're going to spend some time giving you a whole lot of stick, mate, for having a 700-man squad. But we will give you credit for the players that genuinely are good. Dill, what do you think?
To be honest, like I know you're saying we'd take any of the Chelsea midfield. They'd probably take Will Ferrell.
That's true.
Be honest.
Which version of Will Ferrell?
The current version.
Anchorman Will Ferrell.
Not Elf.
65
No, not Elf. No. Jesus Christ, no.
I'd take the madman from what's that film? God, I can't remember.
You're not going to think of it now.
Narrow it down a bit.
Yeah,
No, it was one of the very first ones he ever did. He's running down the street naked. It's
Oh,
got
I know what you're talking about. I know what
yeah.
you're talking about.
He's
Yeah, I know what you're
absolutely
talking about. Old
psychotic
school,
in
old
it.
school,
Old school. That's the
old
one.
school.
Okay, let's not get drawn into a letterbox debate. Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, fresh in the club.
Yeah. I'm gonna say keep, but I think you can tell by the way I'm reacting to this is I just again
Yeah.
similar to what I said with Disasi, I don't really think it was much needed, especially now. I don't mind him as a footballer. I think he's a floor raiser in terms of Maresca's first season. And it looked like he was going to be a floor raiser when he was first signed and in pre-season. You could tell he was sort of a little bit ahead of everybody else in learning the system because he'd already played in it.
Yeah.
But already 3 games in, I'm already changing my tune to as much as he is a floor raiser. It already looks like the other players are enough on beat that he's not going to be massively needed. You haven't got rid of Carney, Chukwuemeka, like a few of the others that we'll speak about. You haven't got rid of them.
Yeah.
And I just think he's a slightly. It's just a weird one. It's just a weird one.
Well, I mean, players like Carney, you have gotten rid of, not out of the club. They're just training with their own 22 players.
Yeah, well, Carney isn't now. Carney's back.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Carney's back.
in. Yeah.
So yeah, who I rate above Dewsbury Hall.
Flip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ray Carney above a lot of players, to be honest. I think he's immense.
Yeah. So do I.
Okay, so are we getting rid of Dewsbury Hall? Yeah.
I did. Oh, it's tough. I said keep, but I think if I had the choice of like building my midfield, I don't think it was needed. So if you're calling that a sell, then sure.
He's only been there a week, bless him.
That's what I mean. That's why I don't want to sell him for that reason.
He's still in his new house already.
Packing back to Leicester. Well, we just mentioned him. So Carney Chukwuemeka.
I would have loaned him out this year. Again, this is on pre-existing things. So if Dewsbury Hall hadn't have came in, then it may have changed things. But on the basis of Dewsbury Hall, had he been there, I would have loaned him out anyway.
Yeah.
He's the sort of player like you've said. I think the quality is so apparent in his play. I think it's just getting him back to fitness. Could you get him a loan where he can play every week? Get that fitness coming back into it, start to get more and more minutes in the Premier League, get more and more used to the roles. I think in terms of Maresca, number 8, he pretty much holds every ability that you need to play in that role for Maresca, which is why I'm actually slightly surprised he didn't use him as much in pre-season at all anyway, which is something we don't know whether it's something he sees on the training ground or whatnot. But I'd say loan for Chukwuemeka just because I believe so much in his ability that I don't want to sell him. But I also don't think he'd have got the minutes needed this season.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a young 21-year-old Italian midfielder now, and I don't really know if he's even in your squad. I don't think anybody really knows.
He's come back today. He's come back.
How do you pronounce his name? Is it Caesar?
Casadei.
Casadei.
Cesare
Okay.
Casadei, yeah.
Okay, Cesare. Love that. I might name my son Cesare. That's a great name. Okay, what are we doing with him? Where's he going?
I would sell him if you can get a good fee. Again, it was one of those sort of similar things to a few of the other players that you'd signed at a relatively low fee, with the idea of they're either gonna really take off and actually prove themselves in the squad to the point where they can at least take a squad role, which it looks like he's actually going to take until at least January this season now. But like I said, if you can get a tiny bit of profit back on what you paid, because it looked like a lot of Italian clubs are actually in for him this summer, then yeah, he's a sell for me. It's not that I don't rate him at all, but I just think that we've got midfielders that are far more talented than him.
Okay. Speaking of midfielders more talented than him, Cole Palmer.
Oh, that's a tough one. No,
It is.
We're going to keep him. We're going to keep him.
I mean,
I love the fact that he's coming into the sort of central this year. I think that's his better role. He did play off the right for the first game, maybe 2 games of the season, but against Servette and then yesterday he has been moved again centrally into the number 8, the right-sided number 8, which again, when Maresca joined, that was where I sort of earmarked him to play. That, in my opinion, is his best position on the pitch. I think when you have a proper touchline winger outside of him, I think the possibilities that you can use with Cole Palmer is endless. I think it's a waste putting him out wide to only be involved in 1v1 situations in attack when he's got so much more to offer than that in terms of dropping deep, finding progressive passes through the lines. He's one of those players that you just want to give him touches of the ball. And I think if you're a team that are struggling to get the ball out to the wingers, he's the man that can actually get it out into that area. So yeah, I love the fact he's come into that area of the pitch this season. And I think he's actually going to thrive. I said it at the start of the season. I want to put it on here now as well. His goals are not going to be anywhere near what he was last year. But I think his assist numbers, and I've already been proven right with this so far with 4 in his first 3 games, I think they're going to go through the roof. I think he's going to be the primary playmaker of this Chelsea team.
Okay.
So less goals, more assists.
I mean, he scored a lot of penalties this season, which I don't think you're going to get. The penalty laws have been toughened up this season. He's not going to get those this season. I mean, by virtue of that, I think his goals will drop. But yeah, I think he's probably the most creative player in your team.
Yep, agreed.
Okay. Christopher Nkunku?
He's key.
This one is more controversial, this one, isn't it?
Yes, and I've seen a lot of it come out today, actually, which is strange. But I would say keep purely on the fact that he's versatile and he gives you sort of cover in every position of the pitch in attacking areas. He's also our best finisher at the club, I would say. And he's a bit of experience that the club is lacking. Again, it's easy to be experienced in this Chelsea team because you only have to be sub 25 or plus 25 and you are automatically one of the most experienced players in the squad. So I'm not saying it's a massive accomplishment for him to be in one of the most experienced players in the squad, but that in itself and the fact that he is a prolific goal scorer when he finds himself in and around the box, again, if he can keep himself fit, which he didn't manage to last year, can be a big asset for the team. So I would say keep, but I have seen a lot of turmoil today on people already sort of swinging back towards the sell side. So
yeah, it's going to happen. Yeah,
that happens literally. Look,
yeah.
Okay, we're going to move into your forwards now, and we're grouping left wing, right wing, centre forwards, kind of together as forwards. You made some moves in the market this summer that have baffled most of us. I think a lot of players that have come in that I don't necessarily think you needed. But let's go through them anyway. Let's see if you agree. Let's start with Mudryk.
Yep.
You going to cut your losses?
Not yet. He's on his last chance for me. I said it at the start of the season. I think this was his year. I think he's finally got a manager that is, whether it works or doesn't work, you're going to know whether it's a Mudryk problem or a managerial sort of technical problem within the team. Because I think finally he's actually going to be platformed properly. I think he's going to be given strict instructions. He's been hooked in the last few games when Maresca hasn't been happy. He's been praised when he has been happy. He's putting him out on the left touch line where he's actually got in his primary role to go and play for 1v1s at fullbacks and be direct and make things happen. I think his confidence is absolutely shot. I think that could hurt him even if he is in a better system. Will he actually ever be able to get that confidence back? So I do think this year is a big year for him in terms of trying to break into the squad. And if not, will they try and sell him? I'm not sure. But
you
for now,
wildly overpaid for him again.
Yeah,
another
massively.
player. I mean, his market value when you bought him was 40 million.
Yeah,
which is wild. But
I think it was because of the Arsenal interest at that time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
just
They
wanted to get
didn't
the
want to let a
deal.
rival get him, did they?
Is
And
it
it's funny.
a case? Is it a case with Mudryk that his, I don't know what way it works when I say this now. His legs are too quick for his brain, or his brain are too quick for his legs.
Yeah.
Because it seems like he has the right idea every time he gets the ball, and you can see that he has technical quality. But sometimes it's like one or the other are letting him down.
Yeah, I agree.
It's clear he has talent.
Yeah, and that's my biggest worry with the whole sort of selling scenario of him next year. He's another player, sort of like I said with Reece James. I wouldn't be surprised, not to the level of Reece, but wouldn't be surprised if he went off to an Arsenal at the end of this. If Arteta said, we'll take him for a cut price, and then he just smashes it because they sort of bleed him with the confidence he needs. And I do think he's a massive confidence player. But yeah, I do massively agree with what you said. I think he was bought at a weird time. He's 23, but he's actually got such laboured sort of senior experience. He's barely touched senior football before his sort of Shakhtar days. It was very minimal before he came to Chelsea. And you can tell that when you watch him play football. A lot of the time he is being instructed on where to be. He's the odd one out in that sense. He doesn't look like he knows exactly where he needs to be on the pitch. And it does look second nature to him to almost do things in a strict and confined sense of where he's being told to go. I think when he's playing free and he's confident, and that's why I quite like the idea of putting him out on the wing and telling him, look, when you get the ball, just be confident and go 1v1, and it start there and then start to platform his confidence off of that. I think that's the best way to go about bringing a revival for Mudryk, but he's so up in the air right now. And as you've rightly said, a massive overpayment. So at some point or another, you have to make the decision on what you're going to do, because otherwise that value is just going to continue to depreciate.
I think that's probably going to be your major concern, is how much his poor performances are impacting his saleability.
Yep. Yeah. There's not much else you can do, unfortunately.
No. Okay. You need to keep him in the shop window, don't you? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Let's move on to one that I think baffled, or certainly me and Dylan. I know we were confused about this one. João Felix. What on earth? He went to Atletico. He kind of did okay for a really big fee. Went to you on loan, didn't do so great. Went to Barcelona on loan, didn't do so great. And you've bought him.
Yeah.
Why?
Right. Well, it seems it was the Gallagher situation. They clearly, PSR needs to get Gallagher out. Omarodian didn't go through for whatever reason. Injuries. They found something they didn't like. The tables were turned, whatever. So the only way they were going to take Gallagher is if we took somebody off them. They previously liked João Felix. We got into the right room with Mendes, the agent, and bang, that happened, especially after the signing of another winger under the same management as Felix, which we'll sort of touch on. I think that has a big part to play. Look, the thing with him is as much as I agree with what you said, and I think the thought process of most fans of being he wasn't needed. He isn't a profile that we don't already have. He won't be starting. He's not been bought to be a starter. He will be a bench player, and he'll have to play his way into the team at an exceptionally high level to actually beat players into the team that are ahead of him. But as a fan, I know you said he wasn't great for Chelsea. When he joined, I don't know if it's because we was just in such a rough patch. I loved him. And I think it's just because he's that sort of player that gets you out your feet. And I think at the time at Chelsea, it was the Potter, sort of the back end of Potter. Lampard had just come in. It was our work. We finished 12th that season. Like, a lot of the signings weren't doing very well. That was when Enzo joined. I think the whole Enzo and Felix at that same time, I think a lot of players a lot of fans fell in love with that sort of duo, and he was sort of just getting fans happy to watch them play, and fans are excited to watch him play. So I think I've got that fan romanticism with Felix of, I like him at my club because I liked him at that time. Do I think we needed him though? No. I think it's if you really boil down to it, it wasn't you didn't need to go and pay that money for him. So no. I agree with what you guys say.
Scott, what did you make of the Felix transfer? Because Dylan and I were both very vocal.
Yeah, it just didn't really make sense with Chelsea squad. Like, where does he fit? Like, because they already have so many talented players in the position that he plays in. So, like, you're kind of throwing some of them out to fit him in, or you're just buying them for the sake of buying them.
Yep.
I mean, he's in danger of that dastardly tag of failed wonder kid. He's not too far away from that at the moment, which is a shame because he is prodigiously talented. But the next player on my list, I'm going to skip and leave till last because I think I'm going to go to Pedro Neto, who I don't know if you saw it, Connor. We did our Premier League predictions a few weeks back. Myself, Scott, Dylan, and Paddy, who I'm sure you know. And I think it was a general consensus across the board that Pedro Neto was going to be our flop of the season.
Ooh, okay.
For correct reasons, though.
Yes,
Because we don't think he'll play.
I don't think he'll stay fit for the season.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. So straight away, my instinct I would say, I mean, Keep's obvious, I think, but I think he's a ridiculously talented footballer. And I actually think of the signings that we made in attack, he is the one that makes the most sense stylistically of what we needed. A 1v1 direct winger that suits Maresca, who's going to track back and has defensive capabilities as well as forward capabilities, can go both ways and sort of just adds all of that. But yes, fully agree. He's another issue of, can you keep him fit? And when you've already got players that are already causing these issues, I mean, I've already said this about 3 or 4 players now.
I think you should have signed some physios this summer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that would have been nice if we can get a working medical team. But yeah, the Neto one, I think it's brilliant if you keep him fit. I think it's like one of the best signings for us this window.
Yeah.
But I can fully understand, because again, he's got history of injuries, and if you can't keep him fit, what's the point?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noni Madueke.
Keep, massive keep. I'm a huge Madueke fan. I was absolutely gutted when it seemed like that they was gonna sell him on to Newcastle. It seemed at one point like there was almost encouraging bids for around 30 to 40 million, at which I was absolutely baffled. He'd been one of our best players in pre-season. He is the exact mold of a Maresca winger, down to the T. He fits every single thing that Maresca would want. And then his form, it was only after his hat-trick the other day that it came out that, the board aren't actually thinking of selling him anymore. So it's almost as if he scored a hat-trick and they've gone, this guy's all right, actually. Let's keep him. Like,
I honestly wonder if your board actually watch football sometimes.
it would have
really
really worried me if we'd have gone and sold Madueke. That would have been a huge sort of, because I'm quite optimistic, I'd like to think, but that would have really, really set me the wrong way, because I think there would be absolutely no reason to sell him at that price, especially. Absolutely none, because he's perfect for this team.
Okay. Next one. So we were going to do Angelo, but during recording, bear in mind we're recording on a Monday, Fabrizio Romano has tweeted, "Here we go for Angelo to move on." So we're not going to do Angelo anymore because he's left the club, and we're going to go straight on to Nicholas Jackson.
He's a keep. I really like him. I think he's the number one striker that we need. I don't think he's the only thing that we need. So I think we should have addressed a box dominant striker. I think we needed another piece on top. For me, the squad lacks a physical bully type box dominant player in terms of because especially if you're a team that focuses on keeping the ball, building teams backwards, and then playing against the low block. Jackson, I don't trust enough in the box to finish chances and to consistently, again, just attack the ball, put his head on the ball, sort of bully defenders in that way. So I do think that is a lack. Again, we was in for Osimhen, we was in for Duran. These are players I would have took in that role. Do I think Jackson's a really valuable squad asset at 30 million? Absolutely. And do I think he's actually quite underrated, really, from a lot of the sort of big chances missed and media coverage that he got from that? I actually think he is quite underrated, if I'm honest. I think he's actually a good footballer. But I just think it's can he fire Chelsea to a title, and can you trust him to put the ball in the back of the net at a consistent basis? Currently, no.
This is the thing. He's a bit of a meme amongst rival supporters because he's just so much fun for us to watch. He really is.
Yeah, the big chances missed really doesn't help him. It's those highlight reels.
Yeah,
I think he's very, very, he's a huge asset on transition.
Yeah.
Because of his pace and power and his ability to get into good positions, especially in the 2 City games last season.
Yeah.
He played the first City game, definitely the second City game anyways. The one at the Etihad Stadium. Chelsea were killing City on the counter-attack, and he was a huge part of that.
Yeah, he's brilliant at dropping in between the lines and just sort of on the half turn, he'll sort of just pick up the ball and just carry it 30, 40 yards on his own. He's, like you say, transitional power. He's really got that. He's actually, his touch and sort of dribbling is fairly good in tight areas. But again, it is just that composure. It does seem that as soon as he gets into the box, it does become heavy to him, like can't get the ball out of his feet, and things do start to happen when he gets into that area. So he
feels clumsy. He feels clumsy.
He does inside the box. I agree. Without the box involvement, I genuinely think he's a brilliant footballer. I think he adds so much to the team, but it's just as soon as he gets into that box, it's just he doesn't add the necessary composure that you need in the highest level.
Have you seen those big show horses that pull carriages and they've got those like blinkers on? Just get him a set of them, you'd be fine. Okay, David Datro Fofana.
So he sort of, as I referred to Casadei in a way, that sort of cheap signing. It was kind of no real loss involved. You signed him at 10 million. He has enough of a name for himself that even just joining Chelsea, going on a few loans, you'll at least recoup that. You might be able to make a bit. it hasn't worked out. And I think either way, whether he goes to Turkey in these next few days or whether it's in January, I think you'll sell him, and I think it will be a bigger fee than 10 million. So I think there's not really a loss for Chelsea to cut it. Yeah.
Mark Gui.
I'd loan him, but now I would have loaned him, but now I think we have to keep him because of the lack of business at the top end of the pitch. I think 5 million. Yeah, the striker end of the pitch. The striker end of the pitch.
Okay.
Yeah, the striker end of the pitch, not the wingers.
Okay.
Give 5 million, very good business in terms of, again, I just think you can't lose. I think he's so much better than that tag, and he's shown in preseason his work rate and just ability to make something out of nothing is unbelievable. Again, though, he's 18. He lacks that composure in the box at times, and he's just not ready for this level. So it would be a loan. But you are currently looking, as funny as it is, Jackson is the only striker at Chelsea. The only out-and-out striker.
You've got so many players there that João Felix plays with a striker. He's more of a centre forward than a striker. And Nkunku can as well. There's so many players there that can play as either a false nine, as a 10, or as a striker, as kind of a secondary skill set. And I agree. Yeah, I actually think Nkunku will end up getting more minutes in that area of the pitch now than he actually will in the sort of number 10, number 8. But my point with it is that Jackson's the only complete sort of number 9 that you've got. He is your second. And even then, Jackson isn't offering you the out and out number 9 assets that I just listed. He's not your box poacher in terms of clinical finishing in the box. He's not the bully type in the box, and he's not brilliant in the air. So Guiu, at least, as much as I don't trust his composure either, he's at least a bit more, he's a bit bigger, a bit more built, a bit better in the air, like attacking the ball and using his body to sort of defend and bully defenders. So let's see, but I would have loaned him. Okay. I mean, it's a difficult one, but I think we're about to get on to the most difficult one now. Jadon Sancho.
Yeah.
We've kept Jadon till the end.
I thought that was the one. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just checking. I'm just checking something. Right? I think Jadon Sancho is a massively, massively talented young man. He is everything that you could want in a winger, with the exception of some pace, because I don't think he's got that.
No.
But everything up here is gone. He got no work ethic. He's got no ambition, no drive. He's just got nothing there. And getting him out of our club is probably one of the best bits of business that we did in the entire transfer window, which brings me on to why on God's green earth have you taken him?
Yeah.
You've done us a favour, but why?
And when you saved this, I also sort of saved a part of Felix, because I want to merge them. So the reason I think we've gone for both Felix and Sancho is purely opportunistic. I don't think either of them are needed.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them start, and I don't think either of them you would care about enough whether they're here or not. I don't think, if we didn't sign them, I don't think there'd be massive uproar, put it that way. But 20 million to 25 million for Sancho. 35, I think it was 40 for Felix.
Yeah. If
you look at their tags beforehand, you're talking £100 million players. I'm not saying at the time when they were bought that they were £100 million players, but you're talking the upper echelon of closer to £100 million. If you're looking at them and you think you've got a coach in Maresca that you trust, you think that you can do something with that talent that is clearly there, as you've just said. Can you remotivate them? Can you give them a second lease of life? Can you get that talent to at least show to the point where you appreciate their value, not to 80 to 100 million, but can that opportunity be something to you? I don't think the gambles are bad. What I will say is I definitely don't think you need to take it on both. I think if you're going to take a gamble, you absolutely just pick one and take the gamble. I think you're putting eggs into both those baskets is pretty much ready to have eggs splattered on your face if both of them turn around and just do nothing.
Because you're kind of making Todd Bowley sound like a used car salesman here, where you buy a cheap banger, you do it up a little bit, give it a fresh coat of paint, and sell it on. There's a few players where we've gone, well, we've bought them for not very much, and we can. It's that kind of what what you're thinking with Jadon Sancho here? Is it just we'll take him because he's cheap, we'll give him a couple of seasons, see how he does, and then we'll flip him on for a bit more money?
I think the view is that Maresca likes him. Maresca worked with him, and Maresca likes him. I think Maresca will use him. I do think that if Mudryk doesn't improve slightly, then you'll see Sancho starting a lot on the left for Chelsea, especially if Neto's injured, as a lot of you think is going to happen. Sancho actually will get minutes. If he's really good and to the point where he actually does find a bit of a motivation, like you said, that's all gone. If he actually feels sort of reinvigorated at Chelsea and something happens, then you've got a player there. If he doesn't hit the ground running, but he does obviously still getting some minutes, and he's Dortmund then come in and you can get more than 25 million for him, then you've still made a profit. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of people are I think the thing with the Chelsea board, whether it's moral or not, is if they see a deal that they think they can make at a minimum a profit and at a maximum they become a big player for the team, I think that for them is enough to make that deal happen. Whether it's excessive is, of course, something for another day. That's a different conversation. But I think their way of business is, can we get a player where it's more or less a win-win? And I know that sounds silly.
Would you keep him? Actually, no, different question. Would you have bought him?
No.
Do you want to keep him? Sorry, Dill.
Yeah.
You
Which
do want to
sounds
keep him.
great.
Fucking of course you do. Sorry. Dylan, go on.
No, I think another reason why Chelsea signed Sancho is Joe Shields seems to have a big effect on the scenes at Chelsea, and I think he was a huge factor in that, and the likes of Lavia as well. So I think he has a big say. I think he worked with Sancho at City.
Yes, he's always said. Shields actually said that Sancho's his biggest achievement.
Yeah.
So
that's not an achievement.
but
it wouldn't be going on my CV.
Prime Sancho.
Right, yeah. Let me ask you a quick question then, Connor, before because this is the last person in the squad that we're going to talk about. Seeing how Jadon behaved for the last 18 months to 2 years at United, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure he feels hard done by the club for a few different reasons, but official statements against the manager, being given a leave of absence for mental health issues, fully paid, coming back, not really putting the work in, going on strike, going to Borussia Dortmund, coming back, making amends with the manager, and then making public statements that he wants to leave. All of those kind of behavioral problems. Does that not worry you at a club like Chelsea, where you already have, you've got the Enzo Fernandez situation with the coach video that's still looming large over the club. You've got the sale of hotels that have just been ruled out by UEFA as a means of making your books balance. There's just so many stories around your club at the moment. Having Sancho as yet another story, do you not feel that's just muddying the waters a bit?
Yeah, I do. And that's almost why I think that if I was fully just to make the decision outright and I was in charge, like the actual sporting director at the time, I'd have said it's not worth the hassle for the deal. But when I try to make sense of it, that's where I come to sort of the value, depreciation, like those sort of things, because I do think that you can make sense of those deals. Do I think you need to make them though? No. And I agree completely that if they are going to make those deals, they better be sure that Maresca's involvement, Joe Shields' involvement, that they can ensure that that doesn't happen with Sancho, and that they're so sure about him as a character, or at least obviously as a character, to not turn on them who are supposedly close people to him in his life. So that's the gamble, and it could really blow up in our faces. So let's just hope it doesn't.
Okay. Well, look, we're gonna put your completed squad up on the screen now. This is what Connor has decided he is going to stick with, which I think is basically everyone bar two. Alfie, how many players has he sold?
He's got rid of 4 players. So you still got 6.
How big's the squad in this sense, by the way?
You've got 4 keepers. You've got
Bergstrom's in the academy though, so
yes. So you've got 8 defenders. You've got 5 midfielders. You've got 7 attackers.
Is that with Guiu staying?
Yes.
Yeah, so okay, that's fair enough.
Plus all of the others that are training alone.
Nah, they're in the bomb squad. They're fine.
Okay, well, Yeah, that concludes the squad building section. We're going to now move on to section 2, which is boardroom and management. Scott.
Right, so you have the keys to Stamford Bridge. The first question is, Bowley and Egbali have been there. Are you reversing any of the decisions that they've made?
Oh, I mean,
All
yeah.
of them.
I mean, if I could reverse pretty much that entire first window, then I would. Maybe I'd then revisit it because, like I've said before, Cucurella I actually quite like. Do I like the terms of the deal? No. Fofana, player I like. Do I like the terms of the deal? No. But there's of course deals that I'd reverse. Sterling's one that I'd reverse in a heartbeat. Even just as soon as now, I think we've actually been left with egg in our face with the Sterling deal to Arsenal online because we're paying 200k of his wages. And I actually think that as much as I dislike Sterling as a player, I don't think he suits the team that we had on our hands. And I do think it was the right decision to sort of push him out. I think you've actually strengthened Arsenal. I think he actually offers them exactly what they need in depth. So
yeah,
I think that's a decision there. Like I say, that first window, a massive issue. Honestly, there's so many that I genuinely think if you gave me another 5 minutes, more would come to my head. But there is a lot that I've disagreed with in the same sense that there's a lot that I do agree with. The people like Enzo Fernandez and Casado, I'd say I personally think that they're good deals, even though they are overpayments. So I'd do them again, whereas a lot of people wouldn't. So tough question, but first window's the biggest one, I'd say.
Yeah, I'll kind of like help you out. So if you're in Chelsea now, are you sticking with the ridiculously long contract lengths?
Right.
You're basically taking your players in utero and giving them 35-year contracts.
Cole Palmer's on 10 years now with Jackson.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Well, I personally, I don't know the degree of sort of the finances and how hard it is to get those people out of the contracts once they're in them. So talking from from the perspective that we can speak from, I actually don't think it's as big a deal as some people are making out unless the player becomes so poor that they are impossible to get rid of. Sterling one's a different type because you gave him, that was when Bert Bowley was in charge of those proceedings and you gave him a ridiculous fee. But nowadays the wages on these long deals aren't big. So getting rid of some of them would actually be fairly easy, even if they're not performing, because they're only on 70k, 80k a week. So I don't think that those long-term deals are actually as big an issue. In the past, I think they were, but I think the new revised wage structure has sort of changed it to the fact that they're actually not as big an issue. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Are you happy with like the transfer strategy that they've been using?
I'm happier than most, but I think that it needs, again, it needs tweaking to the fact that it shouldn't all be that they tried to do it all in one go. I think that they pretty much came into a sinking ship. I personally think that the team under Abramovich I think it was covering over cracks with the Champions League under Tuchel. I think this team has needed a blast from the bottom up for a good while now. And I think what they did wrong is they planned to do it as quick as possible. And in doing that, they've actually made it a longer process by thinking, right, let's try and blow it up all in one go, get rid of all the experienced players that we have, start really young, and then see if they can take it from there. But so yeah, I would personally look to add bits of experience where you can. But I think it's so deep in now that it's almost worth letting them sort of gain experience now, because you've already sort of took that. You've already sort of committed to that for the last 2 years. You've already actually had the growing pains of it. You've already upset the fans. You've already sort of took the poor finishes in the league. You should probably just ride it now. But if you could reset it from the beginning, I would do it a little bit slower and add a little bit more experience into the strategy.
Yeah, you mentioned like upsetting the fans. I think one of the biggest decisions that they made was very early on when they sacked Tuchel.
Yeah,
and you're on your 4th permanent manager since Bowley and Clearlake have come in. Have any of them managers would you have kept longer than they kept?
Potter, I would have liked to have kept longer, but I think the writing was on the wall for him. I think that it got to the point where the fans and everything, it got so bad that they had to make a decision. This is obviously taken away from Tuchel. So like a Tuchel, I would have loved to have kept, but it seems like something else went on there that we don't know about. And I still to this day believe that something bigger happened than anybody knows. So I'd leave that at that. Potter would have kept longer, but I think it was almost forced. Lampard, of course, was interim. Then Poch, no, I think was always a year. Even in my head, it was always a year appointment. I didn't agree with the appointment at the time overly, but even then, I think it was an appointment to sort of bed in the youngsters. I never actually saw him as a long-term manager for Chelsea. I thought he was always going to be short-term. And then Maresca is everything I've wanted in a manager for quite a while. So I'm extremely happy with Maresca. And if I was Chelsea, like if I had the key, which I do right now, I would be holding on to Maresca, whether we finish 8th this year, 7th this year. I'd keep Maresca. I'm that confident in him.
Do you think they will?
Ooh.
If he has a poor season and finishes 12th.
Oh, 12. No, he'd be gone at 12. He'd be gone at 12.
I think the reports were that no matter where they finish,
Unless
it's like relegation level, I think they said that they're going to keep him no matter where they finish.
The reports have said that. I would be shocked if they kept him below 10th, honestly, as much as I want him to stay. I trust him no matter what. I like the process. Whereas Poch didn't suit any of the squad and it was going the wrong direction. Maresca is everything this squad needs in terms of the direction of the way the squad's been built. It's actually built towards a manager of his philosophy. So I would stick with him. Do I see them keeping him below 10th? No. Hopefully they keep him no matter what, though.
On that, where do you think Chelsea finish under Maresca this season?
I said 5th at the start of the year. And I think had we have landed an Osimhen, I'd have said 4th. Without, I'm going to stick with 5th, unfortunately.
Do you think 5th is that high?
Yeah, I'm quite confident we don't finish below 6th. You can come back to this if you want. But,
we will.
Well, Alfie's going to clip that exact moment there.
Yeah, clip it. I'm confident we come top 6.
United champions.
But who?
United champions, yeah.
Serious questions only, Dylan.
Yeah, maybe not.
Do you think do you think there's any like tactical adjustments Maresca could make with his squad to like push his into 4th?
Not really. I genuinely think it's everything that I think people think he was stubborn. I tried to tell people that he was nowhere near as stubborn as was being made out in the media, but people just wanted to see it as he plays a 3-2-5, the whole like how the current modern day football's going. There's so much more to Maresca than that. Yesterday, we saw Casado dropping into the back 4, Palmer dropping in as the number 6 with Enzo Fernandez and Gusto basically playing as the number 8s. The tactical variety that Maresca has is far superior to anything we saw under Poch. And I honestly think everything he's shown is pretty much exactly what I wanted to see. It's less to do with what Maresca can do now and actually to do with giving him the profiles that the squad lacks, which, as I said, the box dominant 9 is a massive one. Because I think yesterday the massive difference would have been we outplayed Palace in every way. We were the better team, and the last 20 minutes we had them pinned in our own half, but you don't have anybody to aim for in the box. And I think that is the type of player that wins you games in those moments. And we still, after over $1 billion spent, we don't have that profile.
$1 billion spent in 3 years, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm aware.
Do you think there's any worry of like PSR like infractions coming in and maybe like a transfer ban or points deductions coming in?
I'm worried, yeah. Because again, it's because like I don't know enough of what the financial, like none of us really know exactly what's happened. They're very confident that they are complying. We're also, you can make the assumption that a lot of it is going to be loopholes and things like that. I think we avoid any massive point deductions. If I had to guess right now, I would say that we probably do incur a transfer ban of some sort.
I think based on UEFA's announcement a few days ago that they're not going to accept the sale of properties to sister companies. So that's the women's team and that's the hotels on Chelsea's land, right? I think you're probably more looking at European punishment as opposed to domestic. So I think you might be banned from European competition for 1 or maybe more years, which may hinder your ability to attract players in the future. But that kind of doesn't matter because you bought every 23-year-old on earth. So I was chatting to somebody recently, and we kind of came to the conclusion that Chelsea are stockpiling players.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was about to say.
Specifically to kind of preempt that.
Yeah,
and
that's what I thought.
that's what your last 3 years have been. We know something's coming. Let's get the boys in the door now. Let's make sure they're young, and that's kind of driving your transfer strategy as well, right? Because your transfer policy is nobody over 26. If you get everybody in now, when that hammer does eventually drop, you're kind of already set up for what you need.
Yeah, you've got a pipeline of new signings that are only
Yeah.
just becoming new signings. Like next year, you've got Esteval and Paez. They're going to be the new signings, even if you don't make new signings. So yeah, I agree. And that's exactly what I thought too. I think that they are preempting for something. What that is, we don't know. But yeah.
Okay. Dylan, do you have any further questions for Connor?
No, to be honest, I think he's covered pretty much everything on the board.
Yeah, my bad.
I agree with him though.
Flack.
Actually, I do have one question. How upset would you be if Thomas Tuchel took over Manchester United?
I would be very sad, but I also think he's like literally the perfect man for you. Like quite literally, I think he would solve everything in the short term for you. But it would, of course, it would hurt me. Of course, it would hurt me.
If you had the choice right now of keeping Maresca or bringing Tuchel back in,
I'd keep Maresca.
You would, yeah.
Really?
He fits our style of playing more. I just think Tuchel is. I love Tuchel for what he was, and at the time I didn't want him gone at all. But I think the way that the directors have sort of built this squad, I just think that Tuchel isn't quite what they're looking for, and isn't quite going to get the best out of the groups of players we've got. I think you'd actually see quite a lot of the players reprofiled differently under Tuchel, and I actually think that could hinder a few of them. And quite clearly, we've invested in those players. So those are the players that we need to make work. And I think Maresca is better at platforming that group of footballers than Tuchel would be.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest.
Okay. Right. So final section then. Today, myself and Connor, we put out a tweet, one on the Attacking Football account, one on Connor's account, asking for some fan questions for Connor. Some of them were nice, some of them not so nice. And because of that, we've let producer Alfie pick the questions. So, Alfie, whenever you're ready, my man.
Yeah, my first one is from @Fatali Mohammed, and he said, "How to solve a problem like Jadon Sancho, from his suspect worth ethic to how he fits into the lineup. Do you think that this still makes sense for Chelsea?"
Yeah, so I guess as we spoke on earlier, I think that of course, does it make overall sense? Maybe not. Do I think there's value and potential in the deal? Yes. I think the most common place you'll probably see him this year is on the left wing. I think Madueke, like I said earlier, I think he's perfect for the right. So I think Sancho is going to find his spot on the left when he does get the chances. Maresca likes him a lot. So is there a good chance of that becoming more and more common and getting a bit out of him? I think possibly. The main things that I think when you're saying how to solve Sancho, I do think somewhere like Chelsea could work. Coming back to London, he's of course been sort of touted as a Chelsea fan growing up. And he's almost got a chip on his shoulder. A lot of United fans are not going to want him to succeed. Of course they're not. He has almost got that sort of like hunger, and it's sort of his last chance to really make something of himself in the Prem. It's another big move across to Chelsea. So I do think that could spark the motivation, and if it doesn't, then clearly not much else will. So I think it's one of those moves where the whole thing to solve Sancho is to give him the platform at Chelsea to prove people wrong under a manager that he's worked with before that trusts him, under a director in Joe Shields that calls him one of his biggest projects ever.
Yeah.
If that doesn't motivate you to perform, not much else will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next one, this is from @Chris Lato, who's also a Chelsea fan. He said, "Are you happy with the transfer business this summer, or could we have strengthened elsewhere, i.e. an experienced centre-back? Do you also think Trevor Chalobah gets back into the squad at some stage?"
I think this overall the window was underwhelming. I think the best bits of business we did were like Esteval, who I think is like for the future, and Anselmino too, that I rate really highly. I think the big one that I wanted all summer, even if it had been, say, no Dewsbury Hall, no Felix, no Sancho, the one I really wanted was an Osimhen, or if not an Osimhen, I would have liked a Sesko or Duran to back up to be with Jackson, because I think that having those sort of contrasting assets between them is exactly what you need in this Chelsea team. Like I said earlier, I think the big lacking ability skill set in this team is a box dominant striker who gives you that sort of bully type aerial threat. So that would have been one of my main things to go for. And in terms of an experienced centre back, I said that this sort of answers the Chalobah thing in the first place. I would have sold Disasi and I would have kept Chalobah around, but clearly that wasn't an issue. Clearly that was an option. No idea what's happened with the Chalobah thing. To me, it's probably the strangest thing of in the whole thing that we didn't even touch on, because I think he trained with the squad up until the preseason leave day, was then told he's out of the plans, the fans obviously hated that. You've then let him go on a dry loan with no fee, no option, no nothing to Palace. So it's nothing to do. You're not gaining anything PSR wise. And he's a better off. He would be the primary Fofana backup ahead of Tosin and ahead of Disasi. So the Chalobah thing for me makes absolutely no sense. I would have kept Chalobah and really addressed the striker if I had the reins in the transfer window.
Yeah. Next one, and this is from @Justin44. He said, "Do you see anything else wrong with Chelsea's system besides the fact that we are poor at defending transitions?"
No, not really. I think that the actual base sort of strategy with us in terms of tactics right now is actually really strong. I think the defending transitions is more so to do with how you're balancing the lineup at the time. As I said earlier with Enzo Fernandez, I think you can be susceptible to transitions when he's in the squad if you don't have the right players around him. When Lavia is in the team, it gives us a little bit more solidity in that fact. And I do think Maresca is doing things to address that and to protect Enzo by playing him in the 8 and having a little bit more defensive sort of prowess behind him, with Fofana being aggressive, Lavia, Caicedo in the 6. But apart from that, I do think it's more to do with the qualities of the players and what you can grab from them than the actual tactical aspect. So I don't think there's as much. I'm quite happy with it currently. Whether more comes to fruition as time goes on, we'll see. But currently, I think it's actually quite good.
Yeah. Next one, this is from @UnitedMicah, and he said, "Are you concerned that the seemingly tight wage structure in place may see Chelsea miss out on marquee targets like an Osimhen going forward?"
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes. I think that it's clever to implement this sort of thing whilst you're not in the Champions League. I think when you can get buy-in from players, especially because they're young and they're relatively inexperienced and they're coming from teams that weren't paying them big wages anyway, I think it was a clever move to reduce a ridiculous wage structure that we had before, with Sterling on 300, Chilwell on 200, Lukaku, etc. These players that are way above their weight in wages and weren't performing at the level or not even playing at all. The question is, when we get back into the Champions League, how much does it re-increase, or do they become content with what they've created and continue to do that? If it continued at that rate, I'd be worried. If they rose it coming out of the transfer, coming back into the Champions League, then I'd be less worried. So it all comes down to what they do in the future, and that we don't know.
Yeah. Last one, this is from @EllisHammond288, and he said, "How to solve the Chelsea squad, and is it possible Maresca can keep every player happy with their playing time?"
Not everybody, no. I think there is, of course, going to be people that become slightly upset. The big caveat with that is if everybody's fit, because if everybody, as we said earlier, there's plenty of people that you don't know if you're going to keep them fit anyway. So if you don't keep them fit, then all of a sudden the players are getting all the minutes they need. If Reece isn't fit, Gusto's playing. If Nkunku isn't fit, Felix is getting minutes, vice versa. So if everybody's fit, then I could see, let's say, Lavia becoming maybe disgruntled if he's playing really well, but getting shoved to the side because Caicedo and Enzo are starting. Or if Madueke is playing really well, but you need Sancho to get minutes because you want to get his value back up. These sort of things, I think, could cause squad harmony issues. But again, it depends on the fitness of the team, which is something you can't really afford to take a gamble on right now, because we're not exactly in a very good boat of keeping players fit.
Like we said earlier, I think you needed to buy some physios this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should have done that with the board questions. Just brought in a load more physios.
Yeah. Alfie, are we done?
Yeah, that's all, man.
Okay.
That's all, man.
I've got one more, and it's quite a long one, but we need a quick answer, right? Because we're running out of time.
I'll try.
We've already been going for an hour and a half, and an hour of that was the squad builder. So, One of the attacking football boys said, if the planned model, so it's Kumaran_Rohit3, if the planned model is similar to City's, where you buy a player like Alvarez, develop him for a couple of seasons, and then sell him for 4 or 5 times the purchase price, which is what I said earlier, how does Chelsea plan to provide minutes to players? With a bloated squad, do you sell the players who've proven themselves, or those who haven't gotten enough minutes? If it's the latter, how do clubs assess a player's potential if he hasn't played enough minutes? Which I think is a really good question
It's
to
a
end
good
on,
Yeah,
actually.
good question.
Yeah, that
Very
is a
good
good
question.
question.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those ones that it's tough to answer to, because I think there's a few means of how you can do it. One of them being the fact that Chelsea are trying to provide a similar level of multi-club model as City and get more. At the minute, we've only got Strasbourg, so we've already shown that we've sent Petrovic, we've sent Wiley, we've sent Andre Santos, we've sent a few
Yeah.
players there already who are brilliant footballers. And again, they are like people on like Andre Santos, for example. If he doesn't make it into the Chelsea team, he's one that I almost guarantee goes for at least double his price already. I'm confident on that. Just from his loans. The problem is again, they've hoarded the players early and they've not done the other bit in acquiring the clubs quickly enough. So now you're left with a position where you haven't actually got the clubs to give them the minutes that they need with the loans that by dishing them out amongst.
Yeah.
So again, that's where you now have to try and find a different way. You have to find either onshore loans in England for them where you can guarantee them some minutes. So Leslie Ugachukwu going on loan to Southampton. That's another, in my opinion, quite a good move. I think his value increases with time there. And the ones that do stay at the club, you have to be sure that you're going to give them minutes, even if it is from the bench, or at least show them, put them on a platform to show something to maximize the chances of at least breaking even. Because I think that's what they're trying to do is, as I said earlier, minimum is we'll still sell them at a broke even if it's not making a profit. If it really fails, so say Datro Fofana barely played at Chelsea, got a loan at Burnley, and then he's probably going to leave for either a slight profit or around 10 million again.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. I definitely hear the whole, can you give everybody minutes to actually maximize their potential, or are you going to stock them and then are they going to actually fail and sort of drift away and lose that potential value? But then, and you only have to look at someone like Angelo, who's just sold, as you said today, for an £8 million profit, who never really played at Chelsea and had half a season last year on loan at Strasbourg and still sold for £8 million profit. I think it all depends.
I think the thumbnail for this video is going to be Todd Bowley as a used car salesman, just because that seems to be the kind of theme of the podcast. Just before we go, I just want to touch on Maresca. I think his biggest challenge this year is not going to be how he tactically sets up the team. It's not going to be how he gets points away at Man City. It's not going to be this game or that game. His biggest challenge this season is going to be how to keep the players happy. And he's kind of already come out and nailed his colours to the mast. He was asked about having such a bloated squad, and he said, I haven't got 42 players. I've got 21 players. The other 21 are away over there. I'm not interested in them, which is going to cause problems in and of itself. Don't get me wrong, it's a strong presence and a strong statement, but how does that make the rest of the squad feel when the others are... It must be disheartening, right? It must be a bit of a...
Yeah.
If he's treating them that way, he might treat me that way next week. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's going to be his biggest challenge.
And I think it's also the fact that a lot of them are obviously friends. So I think for me, it was about getting rid of the ones that could be more of an issue. So Sterling, I think, actually would have maybe caused a little bit more of a ruckus behind the scenes. Someone like Chilwell, I don't think will as much. But then, like you said, they're all friends at the end of the day. Somebody like Chilwell, who's probably quite a big part of the camp for the last 3 years, for the youngsters coming in, they might see that as quite a big thing for Chilwell to be cast aside, because he's actually was vice captain last year. So these sort of things, they can add up. And it's one of those ones where, as much as I have my opinion, I love the fact Maresca's done it, because it was with players that I did agree with Maresca that don't quite make the squad. The nature of how it affects everybody else is something that I can only guess, because I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a fairly decent place for us to end. How did you feel about having the keys to Stamford Bridge? Was it everything that you ever dreamed of?
Didn't quite get the titles that I've wanted yet, but hopefully the next few years.
Well, it's all to play for, my friend. Listen, thank you very, very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was a long time coming, but we made it worth it. So thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, mate. My thanks as ever to Scott, to Dylan, to Alfie. Boys, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining me again.
No problem.
Loved it.
I am now going to go on holiday for 2 weeks, so I will not be here for the next 2 podcasts, but please subscribe and then you won't have to see my face for a little while. So thank you very much. See you guys in the next one.